Hello, this is Rachel with the Otago Prattville Public Library, and I'm here today to show you guys how to make a worry pet. So these little worry pets are super cute. They're squishy and fluffy, and um, this particular one has purple fabric with like white fur all over it. So it is kind of a fun texture and color combination. These are great for different sensory things. If you have someone who is anxious or nervous, or someone who just wants something soft and sweet and cuddly to play around with, you can make them one of these. What we will need today is some stuffing, and I've got these stuffings from inside of old jewelry boxes. We will need eyeballs. These are eyeballs specifically for stuffed animals and things like that, for other toys like that, and they've got special backings on them that keep them in place, and then the eyeballs are on the inside. So we'll pick those out for our cuddle pet in a minute, and then we will also need some fabric. So this is our big old bag of fabric. Now this is called cuddle fabric, and you can get it lots of places. I got mine on Amazon, and it is relatively inexpensive. However, you might want to wash it before you start using it, because it can kind of fluff all over the place when you're working with it if you don't wash it first. I did not wash it first, so you may notice in this video some excess fluff going all over the place. Please do not hold that against me. So I am opening up my little sewing box right now and trying to scope out where I've got my needle and thread. And I have found them, and I'm going to very coolly use my current worry pet as my pin cushion. But it's okay, he can't feel it, he's super tough. So, we've got our fabric, needle and thread, our stuffing, and our eyeballs. The only other thing you will need is a ballpoint pen or marker or Sharpie. I've got this black pen here that I'm going to use, and that's just to draw out your template. So I'm going to get some of my fabric out here and try not to make too huge of a mess. As you can see, the back side is completely purple, and I'm going to use a lid from an old container as my circle template. So I've got this little lid here. I'm going to use that to draw out my circle, and I'm going to make 2 of those. So I've got my marker to circle number 1. And circle number 2. And as you can see, I'm kind of doing short, quick strokes with the marker just to make sure that the markings are dark enough for me to see when I'm going to cut it. Awesome, that'll work. Let me just get this a little bit better. Perfect. So I'll set my marker aside, set my lid aside, and grab some scissors. And I like to cut out the area to work with first, so that I'm not having a hard time lugging all this fabric around trying to get it out. So basically I'm just cutting a big old rectangle that contains both of my circle templates, and then I'm going to put the rest of my fabric away. And this is where you can see that fluff really starting to get all over the place. So it's handy to have a little trash can by you so that you can get rid of that excess fluff. But some of it's just going to be there no matter what. So if you have pets, you know what this is like already, as all pets like to shed all over the place. But if you do not, and messes come as a shock to you, do go ahead and wash and air dry this fabric first so that you don't have quite so much fluff to deal with. So now I'm going to cut out my circles. Just going nice and slowly around those black marks that I made. And you can rearrange as you go to be sure you're getting the angles just right in the curve. This isn't a super precise process because we will be sewing them together, and my sewing skills also are not very precise. I'm not a very good sewer, but this project is easy enough that pretty much anyone can do it. If you can do some basic sewing, you should be able to make this no problem. And like I said, this project, the finished project, is great for like kiddos with sensory issues, people with anxiety, all sorts of things like that. It's just a cute little sweet gift that is fun and soft and fluffy, and who doesn't like that? So, put aside some of our mess and cut out our other circle. As you can see, the fluff parts kind of cut unevenly, so there will be some parts where it looks a little shaggier and longer than others, and some parts where it's trimmed quite close. Like I said, we won't have to worry about that because we're going to sew around the edge. So let's cut out our second circle. And just go all the way around with the scissors. Take your time, be careful with the scissors so that you don't accidentally cut your clothing or your fingers or anything like that. Always use caution with sharp objects. This part really is kind of satisfying too, because just feeling the scissors crunch through that fluff, it's kind of a cool feeling. Okay, so I'll set my scissors aside for a moment and get rid of this scrap fabric. We just need the two circles. I'm gonna shake this guy off a little bit and set him back here, and do the same with his friend. And sweep up all this extra fluff. Awesome. So that's out of the way. Next, we're going to decide where we want to put our little eyeballs. So we're going to take one of these circles, doesn't matter which one, and we're going to get our marker back out and mark two little dots where we're going to cut a teeny little slit with our scissors so that we can poke the eyes through. So there are our dots. I'm going to go ahead and snip them right away by just kind of folding up the fabric and doing an itty bitty snip just with the tip of the scissors. Let's see, did it do it? I believe so. It's better to do too small of a cut and have to go back and try it again than to get too big of a cut, because if your eyeball can go all the way through, that's not going to be very sustainable for your little cuddle buddy. So I'm opening up my packet of eyes. Have lots of options here. Now for this one, I did clear eyeballs with black pupils. I think for this guy, I'm going to do these nice bright blue eyes that look like this. Isn't that cute? So we're going to gently push through our pre-made holes. Oh, those holes were perfect. Fits perfectly. So there's one eyeball, and let's find our hole for the other one. There we go. Pop it through, and we want the eyeballs, the pretty shiny part, facing out with the fluff so that we can really see them and they can shine through. And once you've got them situated, you'll flip it over gently, and we will use the backs. Let's see, which backs does it say we want? These are okay, so I used this has a nice little sizing chart, by the way. I used the 12mm blue circles. So we're gonna look at our little backing bags. And this middle one here says it's suitable for 12mm colorful eyes, which is what we used. So we're gonna open it up, pour 2 of these out, just 2, there we go. And I like to tape my little bags with the backs just right on the case like this so that they all stay together. So we'll set that aside. We've got our backs, and then it's kind of like a little contact lens, these backs are. You'll want to put them so that the side that is concave or curved in is going down towards the eye. There we go. And it'll just kind of pop down until it fits nicely over that part that sticks out, the backs of the eyes. There we go. And so now we have our cute little eyes perfectly secured and ready to go. Our next step is the sewing. So we're going to take our needle and thread, and I'm going to take my length of thread. I've already got it threaded onto a needle, but I'm going to tie a big old knot in the end of the thread so that it won't just pop right through when we get started. So I'm tying a knot in one end of the thread. Let me try not to rush myself too much so we get it lined up. And then I like for my worry pet to have the fur facing the same direction on both sides. So if you want to kind of look at the grain of the fur and make sure that it's facing downward, if that's what you prefer, or whichever direction you like better, so that it kind of smooths out the same way. And then when you have the grain facing the same way on both of them, you'll go ahead and put one on top of the other with the fluffy side sandwiched in the middle. And then this is the slow part. We're just going to go ahead and pick a spot. I like to start up by the eyes at the top of the cuddle pet. We pick a spot and we poke in our thread just about a centimeter or so from the edge. And we go through. Oh, my knot did not stay, so I'm going to have to do a different type of knot. I'm going to knot it outside of the stitch. There we go. And I am going to double knot that. Yeah, this fabric is super fun to work with, but it is a little messy and it can be a little tricky to sew. But since we're hand sewing here and we don't have much ground to cover, it's really going to be a-okay. So we've got our first stitch secured and tied up, and then we'll just continue going around, over and through, and pull our thread tight, and then go over the edge, around the back, and through both layers. And the idea is just to get those two layers stuck to one another permanently through the sewing. Now we're going to go all the way around and just leave about an inch, maybe 2 inches of a gap that we do not sew when we get towards this area where we began. So we're going to go all the way around in the same direction, and then when we get back up to about here, we're going to stop and stuff it, and then we'll turn it inside out and I'll show you what to do from there. Okay, so I've sewed from one beginning point all the way almost around to this other point here, and I've got about an inch or so left to sew. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and slowly and gently turn my critter inside out, starting with the eyeballs, and then just gently teasing the rest of the body outwards. And I'm leaving my needle and thread attached at this point. And then I'm going to start just poking along the edges, along the inside of my cuddle pet to be sure that the seams are strong and that I've got it fully inside outed. And now I'm going to grab some stuffing and start tucking that in through that opening. You can stuff it as generously or as sparsely as you like, and you can use regular cotton batting or polyfill or anything like that. It doesn't have to be these little jewelry box liners. This just happened to be something I had lying around and didn't have any use for, so I decided I would use them for this. So let's see, I did 3 of them so far. I'm going to do at least 4, I think, because the little top of his head here is a little floppy. I want it to be nice and full for this one because it is still good and squishy. Let's see, that's 4, That looks good, but I want him to be a little bit more round and poofy, so I'm gonna add another one. Just don't overfill it to the point where you're worried about your seams maybe coming undone. Yeah, there we go. That's looking cute. Okay, and now for the final part, the finishing touch, we're gonna recollect our needle and thread and pull it tight again, and then just very, very carefully fold under a teeny bit of each side of the fabric so that we can sew it shut. Now this is a little tricky again with this particular fabric, but oops, I unthreaded my needle. If you pull it nice and tight, and then you can kind of tease out any of the fluff that gets trapped in the thread, it kind of disguises that external stitch really well. So this is a good fabric for hiding your final stitches. So we're gonna do like 5 or 6 more stitches here just to get it secured shut so our stuffing doesn't come out. I'm gonna try to not unthread my needle each time. There we go. And I am pulling the thread through a little bit more tightly on these last few stitches just to make sure everything is nice and secure. So I'm giving it a couple of extra tugs here and there. And like I said, just push it through, make sure you get through both layers of fabric. I missed a layer there. I keep getting the fluff and not the fabric. Let's see. Let's try that again. I just need one more stitch here. There we go. Got through both layers. Pull it nice and tight. And then we're going to do just a couple of stitches to create a knot. And this also helps reinforce that starting and ending point that you created, that you started your sewing from and ended up finishing it on. So I'm going to go through both layers of fabric and pull it tight, and then in just about the same spot I'm going to go through both layers of fabric, pull it almost all the way tight, and then loop my needle through that loop of thread right there. And then before I pull any of that extra fluff out, I'm going to go back in through that same stitch and do the same thing where I pull it almost all the way through, loop through the loop of fabric, and pull it tight. And that kind of creates like a double knot. Then we will use our scissors to trim. Be careful not to cut any of the fluff by accident. And we have got a super cute, super fluffy, this guy's a little lumpy because of the stuffing I used for him, but I bet if I played with him for a couple minutes, he would even out a little bit. But here is our completed, super adorable cuddle pet. So, thank you guys for watching. As I mentioned, always be careful with scissors, needles, all that good stuff. Do not injure yourself. But I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make this. And if you make one of your own, I would love to see what it looks like, what fabric you used, what eyeballs you picked out, all sorts of good things like that. You could even use buttons for eyeballs if you wanted. Anyway, now my one cuddle pet has a friend and they're going to hang out together. And I hope you guys will consider watching another library video soon. Thanks. Have a great day.